one other person joining us. So the main idea is this transition, that we're dealing with, which is this idea of, like where are we at now, right? We did a lot of preparation, we did a lot of learning, we made connections. The thing is like this too. Every year that I really became aware, it's interesting. Like before, I went through my process into Judaism when I learned about when I learned about the concept of Pesach. This is like almost like more than like 20 years ago. That I remember like throughout my life, like I used to always get really like like sick, like
Right.
around shalom. I used to always get like sick like during the time of Pesach, and then I went to the Kabbalah Center because I always knew like before I got into like learning and that whole thing that I always knew like around this time of the year I always get sick. It was just like a whole thing. It's like I could prepare for it. Then I found out when I started going to Kabbalah Center, like this time of the year is Pesach. I mean, it's Purim, right? And it was just like a whole like thing, whatever. But the point is saying that I went from like not being aware of it at all, right, and going through a process of recognition and understanding, as a person that wasn't per se accepting the Torah at that point, but nevertheless, was learning about it, right? And so I was able to kind of like make certain connections. But the point is to say that every single year I get a little bit better, right? Because the thing is, there's a lot of people who, do things and it's just kind of like, it's a routine, it's a tradition, it's the right thing, all these types of things. But there's another thing to be conscious, right? To be conscious of what's going on and having intention with your actions, right? And when you're in that mindset, that's a very high level of holiness, right? Very high level of holiness. And so when we see when we see when we see ourselves able to perform certain mitzvahs, it's a bracha because that means Hashem gave us an access pass, right? He didn't let us do too much light. So a person shouldn't say like, oh well, I don't live in a Jewish community, I don't do this and do that. They should rather look at it as a process of like building, right? And so at this stage, this is the amount of kedusha I was connected to. You know what I'm saying? And then every year you get more and more. So I'm just saying by myself, this is a pretty successful year, on a lot of different levels, in terms of Purim, but the thing is, it's even more, right? It's even more. So, anyways, the point is just saying, so the question is, and the point of this discussion, we're going to bring a lot of Rabbi Nachman in a second. So, buckle up for that. But the thing is it's really like building like outlook, like where are we at now? We just connected to this powerful light of Purim. We went through the fast of Esther, we read the book of Esther. We did whatever acts of charity, these types of things, right? We had the Suda, right? So we brought down a lot of different lights, and so now where we at? We did the job, we did it to the best of our ability for this year. So where we at now? And so we're saying now is the beginning of the preparation for Pesach, right? The light of Purim, it's like, we know God is real. You know what I'm saying? We know God is real. We know that the light is real. We felt it. We connected to it. So there's no doubt now. Now that we've reached this elevation, now the thing is, it's like, okay, by Purim or by Pesach, what goes on? Because we want to bring that light of Purim, to the Pesach. We want to make that connection now, right? Why, as a light of Pesach is slowly leaving this atmosphere, because it's still here, right? No matter where we're at, that light is still slowly disseminating away. It's not disseminating away, it's elevating. But what we want to do is we want to project our minds and say Pesach. And they said even the Suda itself, right, is a connection to the counting of the Omer, right? So anyway, so that's where we're at. We're making the connections, right? And I think something that was said earlier is like, hey, this is like a lifestyle, right? So one of the things I want to talk about is leadership, right? And like men and leadership as men, and what are the thoughts that we should be having after Pesach? What's the idea? And one of the reversals of white supremacy, right? And we have to call it what it is. Some people like want to act like it doesn't exist. No, white supremacy is a real thing. Now, does white supremacy determine my reality? No, my relationship with God does, right? But there's still klipot, there's still negativities, there's still the citra akra that exists, right? So that expresses itself for these people who come from these Israelite tribes in the west of Africa that came to the transatlantic slave trade. It comes through the expression of the dynamic of people that had a different skin tone and were from Europe, and this whole thing, it was a real thing. I mean, white supremacy is a real thing. So now the thing is, before I go into another point, because this isn't the main point, but I do want to address the concept of white supremacy, right? White supremacy is an illusion, right? Does it exist? Yes. Is it actively doing things? Yes. But what is it a byproduct of, right? Like if we could look at throughout Jewish history and say, oh, okay, the Jewish consciousness was not connected to God, right? And XYZ happened because of that. We could look at it. The Jews didn't follow God's instructions, and this is what happened, right? So if we could say that throughout the Torah, why can't we look at our own history that way? Right? Why can't we look at our own history and say, hey, you know what? Um, yes, there was racist people. Yes, they were angry, but if I'm not following God's way, that's God's relationship with Israel. And I'm saying that I'm Israel. I'm saying that there's 200 years of my ancestry saying that they're Israel. We're saying that there's entire communities in Africa saying that, yeah, our descendants were sold to America. We have rabbis in Israel who say that the people in the west of Africa are descendants of the tribes of Israel. So, okay, so we have a lot of conclusive evidence, right? Because there's a concerted effort to keep my history away from me, which is another discussion for another time. But the point is just saying that, when we talk about white supremacy, it's a real thing. Now, the problem with it on a spiritual level is exactly what we just discussed earlier, right? And what we discussed earlier is the fact that, no, my relationship with Hashem, the master, right? Rabboni Shalom, the master of the universe, my relationship with him is what determines reality. And that concept is what our enemies seek to remove against us by using this concept as white supremacy, saying, like, no, it's not the creator of the universe. It's white supremacy that determines your happiness. It's white supremacy that determines your income. It's white supremacy that determines your health care, right? We control everything. That's really what they're saying. We control everything, right? And so this dynamic of we control everything, right? This dynamic of we control everything, right? Is the trick. Because if I control everything, then it doesn't matter anymore. Right? Someone else controls it. Someone else is the master. Someone else is God. They control my destiny. They control my reality. It has nothing to do with my behavior. It has nothing to do with my behavior. It has nothing to do with mitzvot. No, nothing to do with that. Only to do with the power of white people through white supremacy, right? And so we need to move away from that consciousness. Now, the reason why I had to make that a point is to move us into something even more holy, right? And the importance of men, specifically, and women, but specifically men, being an example of taking their understanding of the Torah and their outlooks and writing them out. And for those things to be written out for our sons and cousins and nieces and nephews and grandchildren, that they have a basis to learn from, right? Because we just left the light of Purim. The light of Purim is a total connection, right? Right. I don't know what shir was in, but we learned, like even giving the gifts, right? Mishalach manot. The idea of mishalach manot, like man, right? Man being something from the heavens. Why is it man? Because you're bringing something to the heavens. You're bringing the light force of that energy from the heavens into this world, right? Through the sharing, through the giving, right? And the giving and the sharing, of that thing is what we bring into the world, and we bring into our lives. We create a vessel for that. So when we're going into this whole concept and like really thinking out, it's just like, well, how much do we preserve our own wisdom? Why is it everybody comes in our community and they document our ideas, they document our culture, they document our lifestyle, and they make money from it, right? We have no ownership of it. Our stories, our thing. Why? What's going on? So more so, something that's real, something that matters, which is the Torah. When are we going to start writing our books? There's no competition. There's no litness. There's no saying, well, I got to write it like this. No, you just have to write your story based off of who you are in your life and your path. Every African American story is unique, right? It's unique. It's this whole thing. Yes, it's binded through oppression. It's binded through these different things. But at the end of the day, it's unique, right? And so we have to write Sepharim. We have to write. We have to, if we connect to this unification that we just connected to on Purim, we have to connect to the fact that we have this direct access to God's light. All right. So let's go into it. Little Rabbi Nachman, and we're going to talk about this idea of writing, right? Because it's like it's not enough just to be learned and you learn. Okay, you learn Rabbi Mordecai. Wow, I learned Rabbi Mordecai. Wow, amazing. But what did you do with that knowledge, right? So that's where we're at. Okay, so we're in Sefer Midot, right? Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Nassim, and we're talking about holy books, right? Min sheisha beyadona lechaber ezehu sefer ve'eno mechaberod ze kemod she kula benin. Okay, when a person is capable of authoring some holy works, restrains from doing so, it is as if he remains childless. So in the same way, they're saying that a person creates a child, right, through relations with his wife. He says in that same way that that child is created, which is a life. He says the same way that is compared to the idea of writing his own book. Elu chamachabered chepa safarim l'sirik lahem. So he says, and he says, and those who author holy works should carefully weigh the content of their works to see if there is sufficient material for a book. For the value of any book comes from those whose parts that were written through a blinding of souls, as in it is the book of the lineage of man. But if but a minimum of a book was written through such blindings is not worthy of publication. So he's saying like this, he's saying like, he's saying like this idea of it has to have the right kavana, right? The right intentions, right? And the right intentions binds that safer with the soul of man. He says, maybe, he says, maybe meda, yeah, cholim alechavim, shem kesharoim, בספר חידושים בדורייתא. So he says, yeah, חידושים. So he says those insights. He says with insights are available to determine by looking into the holy books whether it is original Torah teachings are solely the insights of the author, or they already existed, having been originated by another, but were insufficient for forming an entire work. If it is the latter, the original ideas were revealed to the author so that they might bring them into print. Yet the truth is that he did not work with these insights, which such he says which came to him easily because someone else had easily labored over them and brought them to light. So he's talking about variables of how the publication could come into fruition, right? Maybe you have all your own ideas. Maybe it's something in the written text. Maybe it's something by an author who wrote something you found but didn't complete it. It's all types of variables. But the point is just saying this is all connected to your soul. Ke sheni da pas ma'eze hua sefer kadash ale yadeh ze. So he says, when a new book is printed, the crying it took to produce it, which is the aspect of the aspect of mixed my drink with crying. It says in Psalms, defeats the nation's evil decrees and keeps them from overcoming us. Indeed, the essential strength of their rule stems only from the time Asaph cried when Jacob took his blessing. This alluded to in the verse, thus his mispar hayim Yisrael vakol hayim. He said the number of Jewish people were like the giants of the sand of the sea. It says in Hosea. And he says the word mispar can also be read as misseper. He says from the missefer, from the holy books, which the first letters of Bnei Israel Hayam spell, Beki crying. Mina ina mistakel ala nasin. So he says whoever refrains from staring at a woman is rewarded with offspring who will author commentaries of Torah. So he's saying like, hey, you know what? Guard your eyes. It passes on. Mama Shei Safarim Kedushim Shel Kasadikim. So he says, and it is actually beneficial for the world that many holy books written by the righteous authors, including the Midrashic sages and earlier Sadiqim, have been lost and forgotten from the world. Their disappearance causes many books by apostolites and heretics to be uprooted and erases from existence. He said the elimination of those holy books also eliminated any jealousy or enmity that existed between a husband and man who conducted themselves with holiness. So it's an interesting point, right? So he's saying like this. He's saying like, we're so incumbent to write our books and to bring stories and sages because stuff has been forgotten. Like people don't even know this exists. We're taking it for granted that we're learning like we are, but there's so many Jews who have no idea. There's so many people who are in diaspora. There's so many people that have no clue to any things we talk about. Al Yedei Sefer Gadol Sheyotze Le'olam. So he says, when a great book appears in the world, it causes barren women to be remembered by God. This is alluded to in the verse in the book. This is the book of the lineage of man, says in Genesis 1. We're going to continue. We have a few more ideas, but if anybody has any reflections on what we've learned so far, just in terms of this idea, because what we're saying, we're after Purim. What is the goal? Where are we at? When we have students, they say, okay, we did Purim, we did all the mitzvahs, we were dedicated. Okay, now what? Now, this is the jump off. This is the jump off to a whole new reality, a whole new sugya. Moshe told the Jewish people when they left after the Exodus, he says, hey, the people behind you, you're never going to see them again. You're not going to see them again. So we have a chance to transform our consciousness so much during Pesach that's that. But the thing is we're going a step further, right? And what is a step further that we're going? We say, no, this is about total self-actualization, right? And to be able to understand that writing down my thoughts on Torah, writing a Facebook post, writing, on my own personal blog, sharing with people, it's incumbent for me to do it. This is a rejection of white supremacy, right? This is that not valuing our spiritual wisdom. It's so hard. You understand? I get so much pushback from people because I say I'm a Jew. Like it's crazy. Like they're angry about it. They're like, "How could you say you're a Jew? How could you say this? You're not a Jew. You're a fake Jew." And I'm saying, "Wait, why am I a fake Jew?" They said, "Because your mother wasn't Jewish. Yeah, she was. She just thought she thought she was Muslim, and my grandmother thought she was Christian. I mean, what's the problem?" No, that's not true. Blah blah blah. But why do you care? No one else you care about. Why do you care so much about me? Like we talked about before, because the class system in America only revolves for the black man being at the bottom. That's how you justify middle class. How are you middle class? I have it better than a black person. But you guys make the same amount of money. I know, but I'm still better than he is. The laws are in my favor. So because of that, I'm at a higher class. So this is what we're dealing with, right? And so all of a sudden you say, no, I'm actually God's chosen people. They're like, H-nah, H-nah. How you gonna say you're a descendant of slaves, bruh? And now you sit up here telling me that you're God's chosen people? You like those people in the corner that are just saying that crazy stuff. It's like, no, I'm an Orthodox Jew. What are you talking about, bro? You know what I mean? So the point is just saying that. So this is what we're up against. And it's not that we have to convince anybody, but the point is just saying we also believe it. That's why they're saying it. That they believe everything that we say. They believe everything that we say. All of them, all over the world. But then when we say that that we're connected, we're part of God's chosen people, right? They're like, nah, because we don't believe it. So part of believing it is writing down your thoughts and saying that my thoughts are just as holy as all the thoughts that have ever been produced in Torah history for the last 2,000 years of contemplation and diaspora. That's how you know you're real. If you're not about that life and you need a teacher, someone who's wiser than you, okay, so go and do it. I mean, I get it. But that's not what we're holding at over here, right? That is not where that's not where that's not what we're holding at over here, right? And that's not the mindset going into Pesach. That someone else is going to save you. That someone else's wisdom is more important to your children than someone else's. Rashi's more important for my children than I am. No, he's not. People say, "Oh, but he's a greater sage." No, he's not. Not for my kids. He's not. He can help give he could give guidance to my kid. He could create clarity. But the Torah that I share with my children is above everybody else's because I'm speaking to them and at the highest expression of their DNA, right? So that's where we're at. So it's like some people, oh, they may not like the, oh no, Rashi's okay. I disagree, right? I disagree, right? I think that what this thing is about is Lador Vador, from generation to generation. Yes, everything comes from Moshe Rabbeinu. Everything's come from Yeshua ben Nun. Of course. But what I leave for my children is the most important thing. What I leave for my nieces and my nephews is the most important thing. That they're safer of wisdom that they could pick up right now, 90 years from now, 100 years from now. Like, hey, this is my great uncle. He wrote this. My great. That's it, bro. You know how I could tell you how real what I'm saying is? Because I meet people every day that tell me the same exact thing. My uncle did this. My grandfather did this, right? They wrote this. They never met the man. They never met the man, right? But that is a sense of pride and a sense of strength and a sense of self-esteem that my grandparents, my cousins, my whoever wrote these books. That means I'm a part of that type of greatness. I have that potential. And that's how we fight against the system of in us thinking in improper ways, right? Of us thinking in improper ways, right? Okay, so on this point, so I want to go into this next idea, and this is another idea. I mean, we're gonna have to do a man's class soon, right? Because we gotta talk about this stuff hard. Number one dynamic. Let's talk about the eyes, right? Let's talk about the eyes because so much of our culture, so much of our heritage was making a man not even realize that his eyes were given to him by God on a loan, on a lease. You got to get that car back at the end of the lease, baby, right? You got to give that car back. You got to give them eyes back. And everything that you use those eyes for is recorded in the heavens. So we're going to read a little bit of Rabbi Nachman. Again, Rabbi Nachman's a good flow. Just a good chill. You know what I mean? Hold on. Okay, hold on. All right, so let's get on those eyes. Ainayin. All right, so it says Al Yedei Re'iyat Panei Hasadik. Okay, he says, seeing the face of a righteous person, the Tzaddik, has a power to lift a person from depression and lethargy and free him of this evil impulse in all their ramifications. So they're starting off this conversation about eyes and the idea of seeing someone else who's focused on connection to God. And the eyes seeing such a person. So we could go in detail there, but let's just keep going. He says the Ikar Hani Uf Telui Beya name Beya Al Yadeh Shani Zaharim. So he says the sexual appetite depends on the eyes. The tzitzit, he says tzitzit are eyes. The mitzvah of tzitzit is a protection and a remedy against moral impulses. So again, this is the thing. This is why we guard our eyes, because we live in a society that understands that the people who are in power understand Rabbi Nachman, but in the reverse, because they get their energy from the Sitra Akra, from the dark side. There's people who live in this world that get their energy consciously from the dark side. And that's the way God made them. And we have to get our energy from the light side, right? And so they know that their job, the same way that Bilam, said these things, in the same way other people like Haman, right? And Achashverosh, we just came out of holiday. The whole point was is getting these people to sin, and by sinning, they will lose God's favor, and then you control them. Look what they've been doing in our community. The whole thing is getting us to sin. That's the whole thing. The whole thing is us removing ourselves from godliness. So for us, they teach us to stare at the woman, stare at the guy's car, stare at his wife, stare, look, covet, go and covet. Do exactly what the Ten Commandments tell you not to do. Go and do it. And I'm going to sensationalize it. I'm going to write stories. I'm going to write books. I'm going to write movies. I'm going to do TV shows. All they're showing you how to violate the Torah completely and make it look cool and exciting. They're talking about the guy who's sitting up there hanging out with white people. They'd be like, hey, man, that dude's a sellout. Man, you hanging out with white people. Wait, the drug dealer in your community, he's a sellout. He's a sellout. He said, hey, man, I need to eat, so you got to die. Okay, so let's keep going. So he says, Maha Shaker Sheche. He says, Mazik le'anayin begishtemiyut veru chaniyut. So he says like this, falsehood harms the eyes physically and spiritually. So just looking at fake things. That's why some people say, don't even look at non-kosher animals. Some people take it there. Sarig lishmor et asmod shelo yepul livachinat rak ayin shehiyami tat chalev. So he says, be careful not to look at people with an evil eye. Evil eye brings death to the heart of one who has it. And there is several different kinds of evil heart. Some people are filled with envy when they see success of others, or others may be different reasons for looking at people with evil eye. You should be on your guard against this. You should also pray earnestly to God to protect you from being harmed by the evil eye of others. If a person feels he's lacking the strength of the strength to stand up to the evil eye without being harmed, he must run away in order to escape. Al Yedek. So he says, hey,
Hey Rob, I think on my end your audio cut out.
Same here, Chief Rabbi. I can't hear you.
Shalom, Chief Rabbi, you there? I'll go to Nell. Are you there?
Yeah, Shalom, I'm here.
Shalom, shalom. Shalom,
Yeah,
Yavita.
Shalom to you.
I guess he's probably having some issues with his internet.
yeah, I think so. Look like he's trying to look like he's restarting his screen, but it looks like it's loading up.
I just sent him a message.
So can you guys hear me or no?
Yes, Chief Rabbi, we can hear you
Yes,
now.
Yeah,
we can hear you.
where do we leave off at?
You were
Just
about
a
to
little.
share.
Go ahead. I didn't hear you. Go ahead. Are you there?
I think where you were reading just the portion that was on the screen just before you put your image on there. I think that's where we were at a little bit before then.
We were holding by the eyes, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay, perfect. Okay, so anyway, so the idea, I don't know where I left off at, but it's a very, 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 very important idea. It's a very important idea. And so the idea is to say like this, is to say like it's very much ingrained in our culture for men to look subjectively at women, right? And it's a thing, you look at women, it's not like just by African Americans, this is an American thing in general, right? The guy is a construction worker, the woman walks down the street and he's whistling, right? So it's that. And then that aspect is there, but it's like, what's going on? Like, we're learning the opposite now, right? We're learning the whole things that we need to guard our eyes. Guarding our eyes is the gateway to holiness, is the gateway to prophecy, right? Is the gateway to clarity, right? And more important, and that's why I gave the example of Warren Buffett. If you guys heard it, it's like him being this super investor and him making very practical decisions because his thinking in terms of investment is very much rooted in reality, right? And there's two approaches, right? The approach of power is seeing the world as it is, right? Because they're in a position of power. The position of weakness is seeing the world as it should be, right? And that idea of seeing the world as it should be is part of is the illusionary world, right? And they have to do that. Like you've noticed, like the people who always are not in power, they speak in very spiritual, whimsical frames, and we believe in God, and God's going to protect us. But people who are in position of power, they just speak in direct terms, right? They don't have to conjure spirit or anything like that because they're coming from a place of that. And so when we come in as men, specifically, everybody, women, but I'm speaking specifically to the men, when we make decisions and we want to lead, we have to be in a place of reality, the world as it is, not as the world as it should be, where we could just fantasize and say, well, it could be like this, and maybe it's going to work out this. No, we're in a place of authority, a place of accountability, right? And so the thing is to say that, when we look at, this dynamic of, you know, guarding the eyes, right? And this idea of looking at women, like, so a guy looks at a woman, right? What he's doing in essence is training his mind to think in fantasy, right? Because he looks at that woman, he's fantasizing about this and that and this and this and all these things he would be embarrassed to think about in front of his mother, right? All those things that he's thinking about in his mind when he see that girls walk by, but he's never gonna do that. He's never gonna have that opportunity. That's not even a part of the thinking process. So he just created a whole muscle in his brain connected to something that's never gonna manifest. And this is part of how his brain starts to think. His brain starts to think in a place of fantasy. He's always imagining. So when it comes to making real practical decisions in life, he can't do it because he's spending his time staring at women, fantasizing. But the guy who understands that the last thing I want to spend my time do is fantasizing and imagining, right? This is the guy who's training himself to only look at truth. The only truth is the only beauty that exists is my wife. That's it. Nothing else is permitted to me. So why am I sitting there wasting my time looking at it? Right? And the guy who's single, what is he training his mind to do? Because it's one thing to think about girls, like a lot of guys, they're out dating and things like this. And it's like, You know, there's one thing to think about a girl that you're attracted to, or a girl that you have a good time with, and those are great entry points. But when it comes to marriage, you have to think about a woman who, she's going to be the mother of your children. She's going to be your wife. She's going to be the one, backing you up in all your endeavors as a father, as a husband, as a community personality. You know. So what type of things are you looking for? Because like the things you were looking for before, I mean, yeah, okay, very nice. People say like, wow, look how pretty, look how pretty she is. Look how handsome he is. But when it comes down to the practical things of life, that person never was ever claimed to even be that. You projected that onto them because you're not living in reality. You're living in fantasy, right? And so that's the challenge. Okay, so let's keep going. We'll do a little bit more and then we'll have a little quick discourse. Okay, al yedei lemut. Okay, le'amut zikut ha'adam she ha'adam malamed al harasha'a. Okay, so he says it is good to judge even the wicked in a scale of merit. So he's dealing with that issue of evil eye. So you see a person who's wicked. He says this is the way to save from evil eye of the wicked. He said the reason why at times the wicked go unpunished and God rises his punishment far above them is purely for the benefit of the tzaddik. God himself judges the wicked in the scale of merits in order to save the tzaddik from the evil and the wicked eye. Al yedei re'iyat pene hasidik ha'emet. He says when a person sees when a person sees the face of the true tzaddik, he can examine himself and see what progress he is making in the various aspects of his character. Then he can repent for all the shortcomings that he does. So basically, be around people who are at a higher level than you. It's that simple. Like today was Purim, right? I'm in Jerusalem. It's all type of stuff going on. You can't imagine. Okay. I was in a small shul with some Chabad people. They had a live band there. Had a few, a little drinks of wine, salmon. Chill. Right? And the connection for me today, that I was sitting there, I was like, wow, listen to this music. This music is completely being played in the effort and the avoda of Purim. It's so righteous. The musicians they're playing the music for the sake of Purim, to bring the people to Simcha, right? And I was just there like, wow, what an unbelievable level of music I'm listening to right now. Right? And so that was a Purim. And so you wanna be around people. Like for me, I just want to do the mitzvahs. I came, I gave out presents, I gave out the gifts. For me, my students, all of you guys, I gave out presents to the righteous people of Jerusalem, and you guys are a part of that, right? But the thing is just saying but the point is saying that the bigger idea, is to say that hey, be around people who are more, because then the women and men were separated. Hey, I go outside walking back. Hey, it's nothing but wickedness outside. I mean, I gotta watch my eyes. Women walk around with these outfits on, these costumes, and I'm like, man, what's going on, man? This is Sodom and Gomorrah. So I'm just like making it right. But the point is just saying, you have to make sure you put yourself in righteous position, righteous places. Don't go to bars, clubs. I'm not talking to you guys in the Zoom. I'm saying like more people, who may watch you down the line. It's like stay away from wicked places. Sorry. Lir od ed asmo te'im hasidik ha'emed hu gam kin dever gadol meod. He says merely to see the true tzaddik is in itself a great thing. Admittedly, it is even better than to hear the Torah from his lips. But even just to see him is also very good. He says, when a person sees a tzaddik, a righteous person, and he looks at him, In contrast, it brings radiance to his mind and understanding. And through this, he can receive the greatness and obtain new horizons in the Torah and individuals in accordance to the power of his mind. And he will truly achieve modesty and humility and return to God. And this is the enduring life of the world to come. He says, "Al yedei hahista kaluta leidaver sheroim pene hasadik vehamet." He says, merely to see the face of the Sadiq can help change for the better and obtain holiness. So the key thing is using your eyes for holiness, right? And understanding that your eyes are gonna they're going to testify for or against you, right? And you could really ask. You could ask tonight, especially while there's still like Kedusha, there's gates that are open. You can say, "Hey, Hashem, please forgive me for the times in my life where I didn't use my eyes correctly, when I looked at filth, right? And or times I was jealous of other people, and remove that darkness from the eyes, right? That 1%. We're not even talking about the whole night, but the 1% of that filter is clogged with dirt, then the light that comes through is going to be broken. Thoughts, reflections, anybody, please.
Okay. All right. Shalom, shalom. Baruch
Shalom.
Hashem. You know, I just, it really is a thing because he, as young boys growing up, I remember, my parents, the older generation, something would come on television and say, "Hey, cover your eyes, all right? Turn your head." But a lot of times, they would still watch it. They would watch it, and so it became a thing of like a taboo, something that was that just like you feel like you're getting away with something, right? But as we got older, we find out that uh, we had other people in our lives, the culture around us, the music, just everything shifted towards gearing towards us, letting our guard down visually. And that ended up opening up other gates. So as we continue to grow, in Baruch Hashem, because it doesn't make it any easier. It actually uh, it actually and so if we're not careful and intentionally make the effort to guard our eyes, guard our ears, and guard the things that we look at or that we entertain, then you will. It's not even a question about it. You will begin to dull your light, because when you look at things that's not appropriate, you do get weaker, because shame comes in. You feel regretful, and it becomes a part of your memory, becomes a part of your, just your being. Like we tell our children, watch what you look at, because your brain is like a computer, and it will take pictures. And these things, there's things that I know that as a young boy, seeing, hearing, and just being exposed to, it really does. It plagues you. It affects how it's a battle. You got to fight. You got to fight against those things, those memories, those scenes. You have to fight against them. And so, Baruch Hashem, for this teaching because it's definitely necessary, especially coming out of Purim. While we were talking about this earlier, we never look at the book of Esther and look at it now, the way we look at it now. And it's just so much that's in there. And so we're looking forward to the pace out. So
Amen, amen, amen. So yeah, no, that's very powerful testimony on that point. So yeah, so so that's the idea, and it's just we're digging into it and we're changing as people, but we want to create levels. You know what I'm saying? Like we want to talk about, like us starting to really acknowledge our thoughts. Both, all you guys have sent me, different people, in on the YouTube watching too as well. People have sent me like different insights that they have. If it's not time to publish it in a book, at least publish it on Facebook or on social media or open a blog site, right? Because we have to start training ourselves to start to share, to start to take these insights that God has given us, right? Because all this is from God. We're just honoring God. It's not about ego or vanity. It's just saying, no, we're just honoring the fact that God is giving me inspiration. So we have to write these inspirations down, right? And when we write them down, we got to do research and say, like, hey, where are some of these inspirations that God is giving me? How do they connect to other sages? How could I connect the different outlooks to my thought, right? So now this inspiration that God has given me is now requiring me to go out and learn, right? Additionally, so maybe the inspiration is not the end product. Maybe the discovery is seeing how it connects to the thousands of years of Torah thought that has come, maybe all that's part of why God gave me the inspiration to begin with. It's not just to keep it and just say it. No, it's a research and say, well, there's been, millions of scholars and prophets throughout history that have said different things. And God gives me this particular inspiration. How does it fit in? How does it fit in? Because God is giving me inspiration. God is giving me visions. Am I going to listen to them? Am I connected? Right? They say the idea of giving the gifts, right? The idea of a mishlach manot, right? The idea of manot, right? Gift, right? Manot to connect to man, right? Man being the connection from the giving of a gift that Hashem gave us in the desert, right? And the same giving that we do of the gifts to our friends, families, whoever, is the same gift, is the same dynamic of bringing you that light from the heavens, right? And that's why some people wrap it in white, type of a thing. But the bigger point is just to say that, this is what we should be gearing ourselves towards, more actualization, more manifestation of holiness, more connection. And part of that is guarding our eyes, right? Because in order to write, in order to teach, we got to be clear. We got to be clear exactly what the Torah says, not what we want it to say. Anyways, so we'll continue tomorrow for everybody. We'll continue normal time tomorrow, and we'll just keep building out. Any last thoughts, ideas before we close out? Okay. All right. So just everyone just continue on. We had an amazing Purim, amazing pre-learning. We're totally connected. And any thought that someone was going to say something? I heard. Okay, guess not. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say shalom. I was just waiting for you to finish.
Okay, all right, sure, fair enough. All right, so anyway, so we'll continue tomorrow because we'll be more specific. But yeah, we just wanted to close out the holiday and just really have like a really amazing transition and just start really preparing for Pesach and at this elevated level now. You see what I'm saying? Now we're ready. Now we're in our Superman, costume and our Wonder Woman outfit, you know what I mean? And now we're ready to go in and save the world. Baruch atah Adonai le'olam.